Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Make him the cutest that I've ever seen. Give him two lips like roses and clover. Then tell him that his lonesome nights are over. Sandman, I'm so alone.
Worms. My wife calls them my friends. She won't have anything to do with it. We built this outdoor shower, and you can see it has gravel that the water runs through, collects into a shower pan, which then goes across the yard, watering the landscaping in a French drain. Also, as the water warms up, we capture it in this bucket over here. These plants don't require a lot of water. They're pretty much drought tolerant, but helping them get established, it's important to keep them moist. And if you just dump a big bucket of water on the ground, it runs away. What this will do is feed through the tubing that's attached to the bucket and put water in a number of different places throughout the garden, watering it deeply. In terms of the severity of this drought compared to others, we're definitely in the realm of going beyond droughts that you and I or our parents' generation recall. I've done just about everything I can think of to minimize the use of water.
It's the Andy Caldwell Radio Show. Andy is a government watchdog, business and traditional values advocate, and on this show, he interviews leaders and scholars.
Bad romance, right?
Right.
So I'm a conservative with the talk show in the South County. That's a bad romance right there. Well, my backyard's dead. You know, it took hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars, and it's dead. We're heading towards third world conditions where people are losing their property, they're losing their livelihood, they're losing their quality of life.
This drought is an ass kicker. This drought came up much faster, much harder than any of us ever expected. This one is much more violent, much more aggressive, much faster, and much more intractable. You know, nature doesn't send you an email saying, oh, by the way, we're going to drop a bomb on your head. I've been here since 1983, covering water, blah, blah, blah. This is the first time where they've said, ain't no more water in Lake Kachuma. Lake Kachuma, for people who are tuning in late, delivers half the water that we drink on the South Coast. It is the number one source of water, drinking water for South Coast residents.
Have the adults just walk by the box and pick up a vest on your way onto the boat. This is a western grebe, not a duck. Look at the beak. Not a duck, long, sharp beak like a spear. They are here all year. And this is one kind of wildlife that's affected by the lake level. See how they're side by side now? And they're dipping their heads. This is a conversation going on. We probably shouldn't listen to it. No, they're finding out what they have in common. It's like, really, you like fish? I love fish, you know. Oh, there they go. Did you see them running? Yes. Yeah! That was courtship, right? It's so great to see that. I'm so glad you saw that. I wanted to be a grebe for Halloween last year, but everybody else wanted to be ninjas, so. This year is projected to be an El Nino year, but our state climatologist is a little uncertain about whether that's going to be a wet El Nino or a dry El Nino. So if we do not get a wet El Nino, we will have no more available water after this fall for Santa Barbara. So the lake level has dropped 70 feet. Of course, we're in a really dire drought. And it's so hard to convey that, especially to kids when they go home and they turn the water on and it just keeps flowing until they turn it off, right? You turn the shower on and it just keeps pouring out until the water gets cold. But being here and seeing the effects of this and seeing the low lake level, you really get a view of the effect.
I'm talking about the catastrophic 4-year drought. California's reservoirs are empty. The snowpack is gone.
With no significant rain in the forecast, it looks like Santa Barbara is going after ocean water as part of its overall plan. And a contract to start rebuilding the desalination plant could be signed as early as June.
The plant is more than 20 years old, and the last time it operated was 1992.
Desalination is the process of taking seawater and removing salt from it and making it something that we can use for plants or for people. What we have here is the heart of a desalination plant. And it's basically the pumps required to push water through the membranes and the membranes themselves. You're separating that salt molecule from the water molecule. That process in this case is called reverse osmosis, and we're separating those two. There's a very strong bond, so it does require significant energy to separate the two. These were the pumps that were actually out in the ocean, and we'll be deploying something looks very similar to this again this time around. The bases that these sit on are still out in the ocean, and so these basically hang right on those bases, connect up, and pull the ocean or the seawater onshore.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council members. Well, today is the day that you pull the $55 million trigger to reactivate the desal plant. As you know, Channelkeeper thinks this is a $55 million mistake that adds to the $34 million mistake that you made by your predecessors 25 years ago.
Channelkeeper is concerned, as are many other environmental groups who are working on desalination throughout California. We're concerned about the open ocean intake and its impacts on marine life. So what we have is just a giant pipe that's in the water column, and obviously you need to draw seawater into the desalination plant through that pipe. While there's a screen over the front of the pipe, there's still lots of marine life that gets either impinged on the screen itself, if it's big enough, or if it's small enough, like fish larvae and eggs and plankton, to get through the screen, it gets sucked into the plant and gets entrained and dies inside the plant.
One of the things that the state has looked at is whether or not they should mandate that all of the input systems for these desal plants need to be in what are called galleries, or large underground containers. A group at Stanford has looked at that proposal and said there's one problem potentially with it. If you filter water through the seabed, the ocean floor, it naturally picks up a tremendous amount of calcium carbonates under enormous pressures. Now you pull that water in, and it's just like opening up a Coke bottle. When you get it to your plant on shore, all of a sudden, the CO2 that has been entrapped and dissolved in the seawater will effervesce out. And now you've got a carbon footprint that's unbelievably large. And you didn't intend that.
Sophers, come on, let's go. You know, one of the things about desalination, yeah, there's a lot of seawater out there, it's great. And it seems crazy not to make use of it. The problem is the amount of energy it takes to make use of it. So you're actually contributing to climate change in the process of desalinating water, which doesn't sound like a very good idea.
I think we've been here at least once a month for almost 2 years now, talking about not just desalination, but all things related to the drought. And I think that when this item comes up, it makes it sound like this is the only thing we're working on.
Back in 2010, the council went through a very long, almost a year public process of its water supply management plan. And it was always talked about that desalination would be a component. Not the component, it's not the first place to go, it's the last place to go. It's not cheap nor energy efficient per se to transport water from the Sierras down to Santa Barbara. That has an energy cost as well.
In the state of California, approximately 20 to 25% of all the electrical energy we generate is used to move water.
The desalination plant it's one of the ways that we address these big problems. As we built the dam, and now the other alternative is desal. And these are solutions in the short term, but over the long term, it really is going to come back to us to change the ways of our daily lives and view water differently.
The city government needs to put the proper incentives in place. They need to raise rates, they need to ban lawns, they need to restrict watering to, a certain number of days a week. And they're looking at the ocean and saying that's an easier solution. It's going to be more politically palatable than making people pay more to use less.
This community uses 20% less water than it did in the 80s. So we've added approximately 5,000 people to this community. We have almost 5 million tourists come to Santa Barbara and visit, and yet we still use 20% less water than we did in the 80s. I think there's always room for improvement, but you're not going to conserve your way out of this one if this drought continues as it has.
Here, kids, go play soccer in the cactus field. It just doesn't work. I've already cut my water use, and that how I use the water allotted to me should be my business, not theirs. I'm motivated. I still believe in the American dream and the American experiment. Liberty is a great experiment, and it's a great opportunity for people to fulfill their destiny. But what these people are doing is they're limiting our freedom, and that's something I take personally because of the people I care about.
So the apple tree, the bear's lime over there, and all of these, well, the sage too, although it doesn't really need any water. All of it watered with our laundry. We did that because one of my friends did that. And I thought, why haven't I done that? And it was so easy to do. My cousin and I in one day banged out the whole system. Just drill a hole through the wall, glue some pipes together, up into the garden, and it's done. And it's just so easy. And it's like 15 gallons of water for one load of wash. And the trees love it. And I think we've actually even got an avocado growing on here after a couple of years. Somewhere, I think, yeah, here it is. There's our first avocado. When you make beer, you have to cool it down as quickly as possible. So you run a cooling coil of cold water through it. In our case, it goes into a soaker hose that goes and waters the olive hedge. And everybody raves about the beer. Why did I want to conserve water? Well, it's expensive, but that's not the real reason. It's really just that I take pride in it, I think, in using the minimal amount. We now have science to show the paleological history of droughts in California, 100-year droughts, 1,000-year droughts. We live in a desert. So I think people are finally starting to go, oh, maybe I should do something about this.
There's a highlight to the drought. It's that people are actually talking about their water, how it comes from, the quality of it, and that's probably been the significant upside to this drought.
People are starting to get, and it may or may not last, an idea that we need to have a better balance with what nature is offering.
It's so hard to imagine that it's a precious resource when you walk up to the sink and you turn it on and it just flows until you turn it off. So really the controls have to come in our behavior. You do this and then just, so you don't have your camera with you, just frame something, get some water in mountains, click, put that in your mental pocket, and tonight when you brush your teeth, remember, even if your water's not from Kachuma, remember where your water comes from. Really critical that we stay connected to that and the ways that we affect what happens in our communities and what happens here in places like this.
And it's just doing your part. Just doing my bit. That's about all it is.
Sylvie, Sylvie. What? Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Bring me a little water now. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Bring me a little water now. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Don't you see me coming? Don't you see me now? Don't you see me coming? Every little once in a while. Bring me the bucket, Sylvie. Bring me the bucket now. Bring me the bucket, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Bring me a little water now. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Every little once in a while. I tell it. Every little once in a while.